Welcome to this month's edition of Okaloosa Eye on Crime.
And this time we're going to have burglars, and more burglars, just so many of them, and a look at the critical job of crisis negotiations. Let's get started.
And first up, the Walton County Sheriff's Office is trying to identify some Thanksgiving car thieves and burglars. Now, numerous suspects in two separate incidents spent Thanksgiving burglarizing and stealing cars in the south end of Walton County. At approximately 7:15 p.m., a suspect is seen on home surveillance video burglarizing several vehicles on White Heron Drive over in Santa Rosa Beach, described as a white male in his early 20s with a thin build, brown hair, standing approximately 5'10" to 6 feet tall, wearing white hoodie, torn blue jeans, and was smoking a cigarette. Now, in a separate incident, three unknown suspects entered an unlocked Dodge Ram early Friday morning, the 23rd, about 2 a.m. on Shore Drive in Miramar Beach. Now, they rummaged through the vehicle, then stole a 2017 Ford Explorer. Surveillance video from a separate residence shows the same three suspects entering an unlocked vehicle, but nothing was stolen. So anybody with information about those car burglaries or that car theft, give us a call, 863-TIPS.
Moving now to Crestview, the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office is trying to identify the individuals seen in this video burglarizing a Crestview pharmacy. The suspect forced entry through glass front doors but then fled quickly after the alarm activated. He appears to be about 5'8", wearing a dark-colored short-sleeve shirt over a light-colored long-sleeve shirt with a baseball hat and an unknown object covering his face. He was also wearing dark-colored jeans, so any information on that, contact Crime Stoppers.
And the Walton County Sheriff's Office is also searching for a restaurant burglar. Now, this was on the morning of November 27th. Deputies responded to the Freeport Cafe, which is located there on State Highway 20 East. At about 2:53 a.m., a suspect is observed entering through the front door on surveillance camera. Described as short in height, was wearing a heavy, dark hooded coat, blue jeans, and boots. Now, the hood of the coat was pulled up, hiding the suspect's face, but they also appeared to duck their head as if to avoid the cameras, possibly someone that knew a little bit of information about the inside of the business. In addition, the suspect can be seen walking directly to where the cash bag is hidden, and after taking the bag, suspect leaves through the front door, stopping outside to do what appears to lock the door. So possibly somebody that had some inside information about the restaurant. But take a look at that video. If you have any information, let us know.
Next up, we have approximately 5 male thieves that targeted the Chill Bar in Defuniak Springs by breaking in the drive-through window. Once they got inside, they took multiple bottles of liquor before leaving. Photos of 2 of the suspects are shown. If you have any information, contact Lieutenant Philip Austin. His number is 850-892-8513. And of course, you can remain anonymous by contacting Emerald Coast Crime Stoppers, 850-863-TIPS, emeraldcoastcrimestoppers.com, or submit a tip via the P3 mobile app, which is another popular way people are giving information.
Very much so now. The Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office investigators are still searching for information in a 2015 home invasion robbery. Now, one arrest has been made in connection to the robbery that occurred in Destin back on April 29th of 2015, but investigators are still trying to identify the other suspects. Now, the victims at the country club drive home reported they were tied up and robbed by 3 to 4 men dressed in black who were carrying guns. The suspects forced entry sometime after 8:30 p.m., tied up the victims, and then went through the home looking for valuables. Now, they say the robbers, who were all about 5'9" tall with thin builds, spent about 30 minutes in the house before leaving. They were able to free themselves, the victims that is, and get to a neighbor's house to ask for help. One of the victims actually suffered injuries to his head, he says was a result of being punched repeatedly while he was on the ground. Now, investigators have arrested 21-year-old Joshua Hadaway for the crime, but are still trying to determine the identity of the remaining suspects. So anyone with information about that, give us a call, or of course, like we said, the 2 other safe and secure ways to contact Crime Stoppers.
And that had to have been a scary situation.
Very scary
For those people. Fort Walton Beach police are searching for a jewelry thief. They're trying to identify a man who took more than $850 worth of Sorelli jewelry from an antique store. The suspect's a white male with a mustache and beard and was wearing a black hoodie and stonewashed jeans. He also had on a black hat with a white palm tree centered in a white circle. Anyone with information, please contact us. Now, law enforcement agencies are in constant training mode, and one of the critical skill sets recently on the front row is crisis negotiations. There's a crisis, hostages, a distraught individual. On TV, you might see the visible response of law enforcement and tactical operations teams. But what you might not see is the critical work going on behind the scenes with crisis negotiators who work tirelessly to try to resolve the situation peacefully.
We're working on that, again, to coordinate airlines and helicopters and pilots and gas and things like that. That's going to take some time. I'm not gonna lie to you, okay? And so do we.
The Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office is hosting crisis negotiations training, a skill set every agency needs available.
It's essential. Nobody is born with the ability or the skills to negotiate. It takes a 40-hour specialized training just to get the foundational skills and the confidence and the ability to gather and manage information in a crisis event.
Be able to talk to someone that's in a stressful situation, you have to be that calming factor, that calming voice to bring them down from that situation and get them out of that situation. Being compassionate about trying to have that safe resolution is very important. If you're someone that doesn't really care and is just there, they're going to sense that on the other side of that phone.
The OCSO held week-long training that used realistic scenarios, then resulted in evaluation. The work can involve high-pressure, life-and-death situations.
They realize they may be talking to somebody who is in their last moments of their own life, or that they're on the verge of taking the life of another human being, and just realizing the importance of that can be nerve-wracking. I think it's important, though, that people understand that Okaloosa Sheriff's Office is very committed to having a balanced approach to resolving crises, that it's just as important to learn how to de-escalate people who are in crisis and help them regain coping skills and make some smarter decisions about how to resolve a crisis.
I know it's cliche, but I truly take pride in helping people. And if I can get someone out of a crisis situation without anybody getting hurt, I take pride in that.
There's no formal certification in the United States, that is, for crisis negotiations, but a 40-hour foundational course is recommended, and then there's an additional 40 hours of intermediate training that is more specialized, and that's also available.
That's right, and there's also an advanced skills course designed for team leaders and those supervising the negotiations team. And speaking of training, the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office Special Response Team and Fort Walton Beach Police Department SWAT team recently partnered to hone their response skills to an active shooter.
They did have evaluators on hand to help provide feedback on how well they executed the mission and on any ways to improve. So now we're going to run down the first list of fugitives that we have as of today's taping date of December 3rd.
That's right. And remember, if you know where to locate any of these individuals and your information leads to an arrest, you could earn a cash reward of up to $3,000 from Emerald Coast Crime Stoppers, all while remaining 100% anonymous. All you have to do is call 863-TIPS, go to emeraldcoastcrimestoppers.com, or of course you can use the P3 Mobile Tips app.
Next up, Stephen Philip Burfield. He's wanted for aggravated battery. His last known address was in Crestview.
33-year-old Joseph Lee Fairchild is wanted for violation of probation for aggravated assault.
Phoenix Wendell Jordan, 19 years old. He's wanted for robbery with a deadly weapon as well as burglary. Last known address, Fort Walton Beach.
41-year-old William Richard Fontenot, who was last known to live on First Avenue up in Crestview. He's wanted for burglary and criminal mischief.
And Walton County is looking for Ashley Lynn Peacock. She's wanted for burglary and grand theft.
And deputies are still searching for 26-year-old Tanner J. Lewis. He's wanted for violation of probation for fleeing and eluding law enforcement and possession of a controlled substance, last known to live in Niceville.
Take a look at Timothy Nicole Hankins. Contact us if you know where to find this female. She's wanted for insurance fraud, uttering a forged instrument, and grand theft.
And Clayton McCree Copeland is wanted for violation of probation for providing false information to a pawnbroker and grand theft of a motor vehicle, last known to live in Destin.
Jamie Rebecca Adams was last known to live in Niceville. She's 41 years old and she's wanted for failure to appear on a charge of theft.
54-year-old Craig Mitchell Mayfield, who was last known to live on Troy Street in Fort Walton Beach, is wanted for violation of probation for grand theft of a motor vehicle.
And contact Emerald Coast Crime Stoppers if you know the location of Daryl LaShawn Williams. Williams is wanted by the Walton County Sheriff's Office for lewd and lascivious behavior.
35-year-old Coretta LaDawn James is wanted for failure to appear for grand theft and fraud, last known to live on Wilson Street up in Crestview.
James Dexter Jackson, wanted by the Walton County Sheriff's Office for burglary, grand theft, and grand theft of a motor vehicle.
And Walton County deputies are also searching for 22-year-old Devin Earl Jordan, and he's wanted for violation of probation.
Another violation of probation is Roy Nelson Howland, that is, wanted on the original charge of possession of methamphetamine. His last known address was on Harry Adams Road in Holt.
And as the year winds down, we recently sat down with Sheriff Larry Ashley to talk about some of the major highlights of 2018.
Senate Bill 7026, Safe Schools, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Public Safety Commission, and the work that we've been able to accomplish over the last 9-10 months in making our kids safer. There are so many places to start with mental health services, to school districts and their responsibilities in regards to lockdowns and evacuations and how we deal with an active assailant, to law enforcement's response and the may versus shall enter into an active assailant and to engage the subject, not waiting on backup. You have to engage, you have to be prepared mentally, physically, and spiritually to deal with that. And so it's helped us fine-tune our active assailant policies. E-warrants certainly will improve our warrant approval process, gives the judiciary and our courts and state attorney's office the ability to look at these things with and exchange information in a much more timely manner than the old courier system. So, and it helps you index and track what happens post-arrest, arrest, and pre-arrest. So it helps us do all those things.
But for the general public, though, when you say e-warrants, they might say...
Electronic warrants is basically email in a very secure system. It's email for the judiciary, but because of all the information that's contained in them, there has to be so many safeguards put in place. There were a number of priorities that had to be met in going forward. Communications infrastructure and improvement is certainly one of the big ticket items. I think the biggest is road infrastructure that is our number one priority, especially our Crestview bypass, which we've got to come up with a certain amount of dollars, I think in the $20+ million in order to match what BP Triumph monies would be used to for that bypass. And then we're looking at anywhere from $11 to $20 million communications infrastructure going digital. And then you've got the stormwater runoff, which is a $40 to $50 million ticket item. We've got to do something with the jail. We currently have, over 800 daily population for a jail that's built for 560 beds. Starting January 1st, the Sheriff's Office will be managing police, fire, and EMS communications. So when you call 911, or at least for county communications, your call won't be transferred. You'll be speaking to the dispatcher who's going to dispatch your call. So that's not notifying another police agency, it's not notifying another fire department or EMS, you're speaking to the person who's going to send you help. So you don't have to repeat your story, you don't have to be transferred, and that's the goal. Is we got to get away from transferring 911 calls. Certainly after that merger is complete, the next step is to get our communications infrastructure into the 21st century. And that's going to require new towers and microwave repeaters and new radios. We got to get off this UHF, VHS system because everybody's digital. So instead of having to make bridges between VHF, UHF, radio communications, we're going to have to go digital so we can speak to other digital communicators. There's 4 phases. Phase 1 is to take existing personnel, fire, EMS personnel, and bring them under the Sheriff's Office umbrella. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is we've got to purchase, I think it's a $94,000 training module that takes us and trains police dispatchers on how to handle fire and EMS calls, and trains fire and EMS dispatchers on how to handle law enforcement calls. Once we get them cross-trained, then you can do it with probably less dispatchers, less operators, because we're absorbing, we do about 70 to 80 calls a day. They do about 12 calls a day, so we can absorb those 12 calls a day, and you don't have to let anybody go. That's the beauty of it. Through attrition, we just don't have to replace those positions. The step 3 is currently the county's on the Vision system, the jail's on our Arconic system, and law enforcement is on Smart Cop or CTS system. So merging those systems to one platform. Phase 4 would be, what system do you go with? Do you go with Harris or Williams Communications or Motorola? And building the county's new infrastructure, new digital system. We want it user-friendly. We want to be able to track our police officers through GPS, which is in the radio, fire, MS, and we want a simple system. If we want to be able to keep our first responders safe, and we want to be our first responders to be able to deliver emergency services in a timely, efficient, and safe manner, then we've got to do this. And again, our citizens saw that, and I'm thankful that I live in the community that I do. I think we live in one of the best places in the world, and I've been all over this state, and I've been all over a lot of this country, and I'm just thankful that we live in the community we live in.
And we want to thank Sheriff Ashley for his input. And next we want to move right into the next group of suspects that are on the run.
That's right. And first up on this list is Njoli Rochelle Johnson. She's 34 years old. Deputies are looking for her for aggravated battery. She was last known to live on Mixon Road in Defuniak Springs.
Looking for Amber Beth Barrett as well. She's wanted for VOP on original charges of burglary, theft, and resisting arrest without violence. Last known to live in Milton.
And this one's been on the show for a few months now. We'd love to get him in custody. That's 25-year-old Reginald Dwayne Muse. He's wanted for violation of probation for grand theft, burglary, and aggravated stalking.
Oh, another individual we'd love to find is Chad Alford. He's wanted by the Walton County Sheriff's Office for aggravated assault and causing the cruel death, pain, or suffering of an animal. His last known address was Powell Drive in Niceville.
And I'm going to try to say this name. Don't
Good
know
luck.
if I'll get it right, but I'll try. But Walton County deputies are searching for Raquel Cashane Quavasier Jackson. I have no idea if I said that right, but if we didn't, they can certainly call and let us know.
Quavasier.
Okay, all right. So he's wanted for aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, armed burglary, and criminal mischief, last known to live in Ponce de Leon.
Dennis Frederick Taylor Jr. is on the list. He's wanted for failure to appear on a charge of fraud, providing false information to obtain unemployment compensation.
And 40-year-old William Brian Harnish, who was last known to live in Freeport, he's wanted for violation of probation for possession of a controlled substance and possession of drug paraphernalia.
Lucas Lorenzo Williams was last known to live over in Pensacola. He's wanted for armed robbery that took place in Defuniak Springs in October of 2016.
Another new face to the show is 45-year-old Sean Richard Bennett, and he's wanted for violation of probation on the original charges of fleeing and eluding law enforcement, possession of a controlled substance, and carrying a concealed weapon.
Timothy James Howard's wanted for larceny, resisting an officer and recovery of stolen property, and failure to appear on fraud. Last known address, Bearhead Road in Defuniak Springs.
And deputies are still searching for 37-year-old Edward Lamont Fountain, who was last known to live on Wilson Street in Crestview. He's wanted for failure to appear for carrying a concealed weapon, possession of weapon ammo by a convicted felon, possession of a controlled substance and narcotics equipment, and last but not least, driving while license suspended or revoked.
I'm racking them up.
Yeah.
Felipe Carrera Gonzalez Sr. is wanted for failure to appear on a battery charge. His last known address was Earl Street in Fort Walton Beach.
22-year-old Seamus Mason Cotner Marshall is wanted for violation of probation for battery and fraud, last known to live in Mary Esther.
These next few have been on here for a while. George Monroe Emmerich II. He's wanted by the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office for VOP on domestic violence, strangulation, and aggravated battery.
And this one has been on here a while. We'd love to find out where he's hiding, and that's Alexis Wilmer Mondragon. He's 33 years old. He's wanted by the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office for sexual battery, sexual offense against a child, and lewd and lascivious molestation. Last known to live on Spencer Drive in Fort Walton Beach. We have had him on the show numerous times, so anybody with information, give us a call.
Jeffrey Adam Birdwell is wanted for failure to register as a sexual offender. Birdwell last known to live in Fort Walton Beach.
36-year-old Teresa Jean Gore is wanted for child neglect and violation of probation for driving while license suspended or revoked and possession of a controlled substance. She was last known to live on Lloyd Street in Fort Walton Beach.
Give us a call if you know where to find Brittany Linnell Sanders. She's wanted by the Walton County Sheriff's Office for VOP on creating, using, or possessing counterfeit credit cards with intent to use counterfeit information.
And another new face to the show is 25-year-old Daniel Lewis Davis. He's wanted for violation of probation for burglary, and he was last known to live in Crestview.
Roderick James Rudderson Jr. is wanted for possession of synthetic narcotics within 1,000 feet of a school and failure to appear on some driving charges. Last known address, Mooney Road in Fort Walton Beach.
Rebecca Nicole Taylor, who was last known to live in Destin, she's wanted for violation of probation on the original charge of possession of a controlled substance.
And another VOP, Samuel Edward Thomas III, violation of probation on original charges of providing false information to a pawnbroker, false imprisonment, and grand theft.
Walton County deputies are searching for 45-year-old James Anthony Williams, and he's wanted for violation of probation for possession of a controlled substance, possession of marijuana, and possession of drug paraphernalia.
Andrea Joy Myers wanted for VOP on a theft charge. Her last known address was on Gibson Road in Fort Walton Beach.
41-year-old Tashawn Coward Sr., he's been on here a while as well. He's wanted for driving while license suspended or revoked and non-payment of child support, last known to live over on Scranton Street in Fort Walton Beach.
Unfortunately, we do not have a photograph available of Jeffrey Nelson Grimes. He's 53-year-old white male, wanted for possession of a photograph of sexual performance by a child. Last known address was Destin. Another VOP, this time Walton County Sheriff's Office, looking for Bobby Darren Simmons.
And Herbert Samuel Duggar, is also being sought by the Walton County Sheriff's Office for felony violation of probation.
David Russell Alvarez, wanted for VOP for burglary and grand theft, last known to live in Navarre.
And we're starting to wind down now. We're going to go to Troy Don Daramus. He's wanted by the Fort Walton Beach Police Department for burglary, and he was last known to live in Milligan.
Also trying to find LaQuentin Rashawn Mitchell. Mitchell's wanted for heroin distribution. He's last known to live in Milligan. Some rather odd things took place in 2018, and we're going to take just a quick look at some of the stranger things that made news. In March, a Pensacola man was charged with burglary, petty theft, and criminal mischief after a Crestview resident returned home from work to find his back door broken in with a cinder block. He found the burglar, who later apologized for the break-in, showering in his bathroom and held the man at gunpoint until deputies arrived. During spring break, a Kentucky man chaperoning a group of high school students, ostensibly to keep them out of trouble, was charged with holding an open house party. Marijuana was scattered around the house, and the teens he'd agreed to oversee could drink alcohol. The defendant was the only person found at the party over the age of 21. A 19-year-old man walking naked in the parking lot behind Santa Rosa Mall last July ran around the area causing a stir. He was charged with indecent exposure and resisting arrest. A 30-year-old who tried to steal a fairly conspicuous pink and white ice cream truck filled with $1,200 worth of ice cream didn't get far. He was arrested for burglary, grand theft of a motor vehicle, and possession of marijuana. And finally, the OCSO arrested a man who smashed the front door of a Milligan convenience store, causing $700 worth of damage because he wanted $10 worth of cigarettes. He said he wouldn't have done it, but the jail had stolen his cigarettes and, quote, "we should call it even."
And of course, it is the holiday season, and that means thieves will be out in force, even a little bit more so than they already are. And we just want to remind you to make sure that either you are home when your packages are delivered, or maybe you think about having them delivered somewhere else, because I know we're already seeing what we call porch pirates out and about stealing them. So here's a friendly reminder from Sheriff Larry Ashley about taking care of your packages this holiday season.
Hi, I'm Okaloosa County Sheriff Larry Ashley, and as convenient as it is to have your packages delivered to your door, so is it for thieves, what we call porch pirates, to steal them. Please have your packages forwarded to your neighbors or your workplace. We hope you have a happy holidays, and please report any suspicious activity to your local law enforcement and Emerald Coast Crime Department.
It's been a busy month for Youth Services Division. So we started with the trees for hospice, where the department had 85 trees that were needed to be decorated for hospice patients. The SRO unit took 61 of those trees for hospice patients. I'm very proud of that. SROs taking them to their schools, and actually kids getting involved in decorating them. And then we went on for United Way's Coats for Kids. We donated over 500 coats for kids to United Way. Now, of course, the SROs couldn't have done it without faculty and staff and parents and students getting involved, which is what we're all about. So United Way, we donated over 500 jackets to them for kids in the local area. But we decided also to help our counties to the east that suffered during Hurricane Michael. So we did Hoodies for Hope. And we've got pretty close, you saw, pretty close to 1,000, I believe, if not over 1,000 jackets and hoodies that we're going to be taking over to Bay County School District tomorrow. I've been in contact with Bay County School District. They're very excited about us coming over there with these jackets and hoodies for them. So multiple projects going on at the same time. Couldn't have done any of this. And amazing, and I think that's what the public needs to understand is the SR unit is just full of amazing SROs and deputy sheriffs who go above and beyond and do things like this for their community on top of the regular duties that they do protecting our kids and our staff.